everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For those that are new here, hi, my name's Anissa. I'm documenting my TTC journey. Thanks so much for checking this video out. If you've already subscribed, awesome. If you haven't, go ahead and press that subscribe button so you can follow along through my journey as I become a mother. So today's video, I'm going to be talking all about my first IUI. So where we last left off, I had to go ahead and skip a cycle because we were waiting for my period to start. It hadn't started. I had to take Provera, and that whole process took a while. So finally, on day 60 of that cycle that I was going through, I finally got a period. So it was, I believe, 5 days after I had taken Provera for 10 days. And then once I got my period, that started the final cycle where I could go ahead and start taking Femara and Letrozole and, you know, go forward with my first IUI, which is what I had been waiting for this entire time. So I'm so happy we finally got to that point. So I'm just gonna go through my experience during that time and kind of the timeline of what happened. So day one, I get my period. I went ahead and called the clinic, let them know, and they had me come in on CD3, so day 3 of that cycle for my baseline appointment. At that appointment, they weren't seeing anything abnormal. My ovaries looked fine. Everything looked okay. So they said that, you know, based on the blood work and my progesterone levels, everything looked good. And finally, it was where they wanted it to be so we can go ahead and start my medication. So this cycle, I ended up taking Femara or Letrozole for 5 days from CD 5 through 9. And it's interesting because I know some clinics have people take it earlier. I'm not sure why my clinic has me take it specifically days 5 through 9, but that's just the way that they do it. I don't know if it's because of the PCOS or I'm not sure. But yeah, so I took Letrozole or Femara from CD 5 through CD 9. And then on CD 10, I went back in to check on where things were at. So on CD 10, that was October 15th. I went in and they found a ton of follicles. I had on my left side an 8, a 7, a 9, an 8, another 7, and another 8. On my right side, I had a 6, 7, 6, 7, 7, 7, 6. So one thing with PCOS is that you're gonna have a ton of follicles because that's part of the process. You know, that's part of the symptoms is that you do have tons of follicles. So I know they try to be a little bit careful when you are taking medication because they don't want to overstimulate your follicles and then you have too many and then you have to cancel that cycle. So for this first round, since I had never taken Letrozole before, my doctor went ahead and just had me start with 5 milligrams and just to see how my body would react. So that was CD10, and then they had me go in on CD14. So October 19th, I went back in and they noticed that my left side, there was starting to be a dominant follicle. It looked like it was an 11, it measured at 11. I still had a few other ones, 7, 6, 6, 5 on the left, and then on the right side, I had a 10, a 9, a 7, a 7. So they weren't sure yet if the left one was going to be the dominant one because I still had, you know, quite a few on each side. At the first appointment on CD10, my estrogen was at 9.4, and this appointment was 38.9. So they said, okay, come back again in 3 days. So I went back on CD17, which was October 22nd, and I had on my left side a follicle measuring at 14, and then all those other ones started to get smaller. So I had a few 5s and 4s, but majority looked like that 14 was gonna be the dominant follicle on the left side. At that point, my estrogen was at 75.8, so it seemed like it was roughly doubling every couple days. And so they say with mature follicles that they want you to get close to about 200 for the estrogen level. And then they want you to have a follicle that's like 20 or a little bit bigger. So like I said, CD17, at this point I was getting a little nervous because I was like, I think I'm supposed to have already been at that mature follicle point now. Usually, you know, by CD14, 15, 16, but it looks like I'm just, you know, it takes me a little bit more time, and especially with the PCOS, like they say that it might just take a while. And also they say that like if you are on Letrozole, at least this is what my clinic had told me, was that women who take Letrozole or Femara, they usually ovulate a little bit later, so it wasn't super abnormal. So they did have me come back in on CD19, so that was 10/24. And my left side measured, it was previously at a 14, and when they remeasured it, it was at a 17. So that was awesome. It was still growing. I, at this point, stopped being so nervous because I was like, okay, like it's getting there. And I think I asked like what happens, you know, if it takes a while, and they're like, nothing, like as long as your body is responding, we can go ahead and move forward. And I was like, whew, whew, like awesome. Essentially, they wanted me to come in the next day because they didn't want it to grow too big before, you know, letting me know to take the trigger shot. So I ended up going on CD20, so the day after, and that was 10/25, and it measured at an 18. So it only grew 1 millimeter, but they say that your follicles grow 1 to 2 each day, so that's not abnormal. And then my estrogen went from 133 the previous day to 169 the next day. So like I said, they want you to be at like a 200. That's like where, you know, that's a good point. So on that day, they said, okay, you know, you're measuring at 18. We, you know, think that in 2 days you're going to be at that point. So let's go ahead and have you do the trigger. So that night on 10/25, I went ahead and did the trigger shot. My wife is deathly afraid of needles. So one of our sweet friends, Katie, came over and she helped me to give myself the shot. I think, you know, if I have to do this again, I'll try to record that. But in the moment, like we were just like trying to figure it out, and I didn't get a chance to record it. And my wife was just like shaking like in the living room as we were doing this. So I just had other things on my mind that I didn't think about recording it. But the next time, if I do have to do it, then I definitely will record it. So I did the trigger shot on 10/25, and they say that you ovulate usually 36 hours later. So I try to time it perfectly. They told me to take between 8 and 10 p.m. I ended up taking it at 10, and my IUI was scheduled for 2 days later at 10 a.m. So that would have been exactly 36 hours later. So I did have my first IUI on 10/27. And just to describe that experience a little bit, so I didn't, you know, I've watched a few videos, but, you know, I wasn't too sure what to expect, but I went in and they were like, okay, you're good to go. Like, let's go ahead and take you to the back. So I went to like the back of the clinic, and there was a room, and they had me sit on this like bed that had stirrups. There wasn't any machines or like the sonogram machine or anything like that, which I thought was interesting because I definitely thought that they would need the sonogram machine to do it, but they didn't. So the nurse came in and she read me my donor number and went over my donor stats. And one thing about this process is that the donor there's such thing as motility, and even if you're not using a donor but you are doing an IUI with your partner or husband, then they will still give you this information too. But for me, since it was a donor, they went ahead and just told me the information, and they asked me if that was okay, and I said yes. So they told me that the total motile sperm that they counted was 11.5 million, and that the percentage was 46%. And at the time, I didn't do that much research on this, so I just said okay. Like I didn't know too much, but what they had mentioned was that they typically like to see the motility percentage be a little bit higher and closer to greater than 50%, but with the thawing process, sometimes that can decrease. So yeah, so that's what they told me. And so yeah, so I laid there and I put my legs up, and the nurse went ahead and put the speculum in, and then they put the catheter in, and then, you know, I was just trying to talk to her to remain calm during the process, and I think I was pretty calm. So she did the process, and she, you know, pushed the sperm into my cervix, or past my cervix, and yeah, so then she took everything out, and she was like, okay, you're good to go. And I had asked her, I said, oh, am I supposed to wait here for a while? Because I had, you know, seen people usually do the IUI and then they lay there for at least 10 minutes. I've seen some where they lay for 30 minutes. So I definitely wanted to ask her about that. And she said, no, I mean, like, it's not gonna fall out of you. So if you wanna leave, you can go ahead. But she did say, you know, if you feel comfortable, you can stay here for a little bit longer. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just lay for another 10-15 minutes. So she left and I laid for 15 minutes exactly. And I was feeling anxious. My wife was, she couldn't come in because of COVID, but she was waiting downstairs in the car for me. So I was just feeling anxious. So I was like, okay, it's gonna get up. So I did. So I got up and I left, and that was pretty much it. As far as pain goes, it didn't hurt, so that's good. It was uncomfortable because anytime somebody puts something foreign in you, it feels weird, but it didn't hurt or anything. And the speculum bit, she had a little trouble finding my cervix, so she had me like tilt a little bit more and push my butt back a little bit more, but once I did that, she was able to get in there. But otherwise, everything else was good. So now I have to wait until 6 days past my IUI to get my progesterone checked. And then if it comes back lower, then they're gonna make me take Crinone or Crinone, which is progesterone suppositories. And then that is scheduled for November 2nd, and then on November 10th, I would go ahead and do my official HCG beta pregnancy test through the doctor's office. So how I'm feeling right now is I'm just super excited that we went ahead with the first IUI, that we were able to do it. I've been waiting. We started this process in June. Like I said in the last video, like it's just been a lot of testing and blood work. So much blood work. Oh man, I have been poked so many times by needles. It's not even funny anymore. Yeah, so I'm just so excited that we got to that point and that we're here. So fingers crossed that it works. I know that it's very unlikely, but still gotta be hopeful. So fingers crossed, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for following along. Bye.